I'm Saadia Pekkanen. I am the Associate Director at the school here, also the founding director of the Jackson School Ph.D. program in International Studies. I work on space security and policy, and primarily I'm looking at the international relations of Asia. And I'm interested in both the economic and security trajectories in Asia. When I started studying both space security and policy, and then sort of delving into cyberspace, not many people had heard about either, and it didn't seem so particularly important or relevant for what is going on. But we're at a moment in history where this is becoming tremendously important, and it's important for one thing, because we have to worry about orbital debris in outer space that can very much affect space assets, and that can also lead to shutdown of civilian, commercial, and military operations on the ground. The Jackson School is one of the preeminent schools which continues to focus on area studies. What we're attempting to do is really to take area studies forward under global thematic fields. And I think what is particularly interesting about space security and policy is that it's a global strategic domain. So like a lot of other global strategic domains, like the Arctic, for example, what we're attempting to do is to try and figure out how states will behave, or how governments will behave, or how other actors beyond governments will behave in these particular global strategic domains. But I just came back from the Arctic Circle, and I was in Rovaniemi, which is the largest city inside the Arctic Circle. It's in Finland, and it was kind of interesting to go and see, try and understand the perspective of the people, what it means to be inside the Arctic Circle. Of course, you can't go to outer space so easily, right? So it's kind of nice to try and find this community of scholars that's been sort of taking a look at this for a little while, and then bring a number of people, experts in different domains, together and see whether we can think about promoting more stable and cooperative and peaceful modes of behavior across these domains. At the Jackson School, what we're getting very good at doing, and going more and more in this direction, is to make sure that our students have the skills that will allow them to not just enter academia, but also hopefully back in the real world, whether it's in policy or in the business world or the nonprofit sector. One of the initiatives that we have started is to train our students to bridge the gap between academic and the policy world. Now, in the PhD program, we've initiated something called the Bridge Lab. And the Bridge Lab, commensurate with a lot of programs that are also taking place in the country, what we're attempting to do is to train our students to be really able to speak to a policy or a real-world audience, given the specialized knowledge that they're actually accumulating. It's also important to remember that when we talk about bridging the gap, the bridge is a two-way thing. And so we also want to hear back from our students about some of the problems that they're dealing with or seeing or think are important, and to bring that perspective back to academia. In the PhD program, for example, we have a student who's here from the military who's looking at China's military diplomacy. We have other students working in the Balkans, taking a look at whether or not civil society can actually restrain some of the more negative or fragmentary forces within the Balkans itself. We have another student who's looking at how social media is changing electoral strategies, and within Japan. The kinds of students we attract want that particular area studies focus, but more and more what we're also seeing is that students want to be able to place the country that they're interested in broader thematic concerns. You could think about terrorism, you could think about outer space security, you could think about health, you could think about human rights. So how does the particular country that you are studying sort of fits in with these global concerns that travel all around the world? And I think that that's what makes the Jackson School unique, but that's also what connects us to the rest of the academy and the real world. One immediate benefit, of course, is that it's a very short distance to Asia. I feel very fortunate to be in a place that has had a very long sort of history of involvement with Asia, that is also a prominent trade partner with Asia and Asian countries. That is where the future is in some ways, both economically, politically, and militarily. And I believe that Washington State as a whole is sort of at the cutting edge of being able to deal with what goes on in Asia. About the Jackson School itself is that since 1909 we have been sort of concentrating on Asia. So as an Asia specialist, I feel that very, very fortunate to be in a place that has had such a long and distinguished history of being involved with Asia academically, but also from a policy perspective. And that is a heritage, I think, that we want to take forward in the 21st century.